Hello, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to be looking at my Audio Technica ATR2500 USB. And my Blue Yeti died on me, and it's waiting on the kitchen floor for an RA return authorization from Blue Microphones. In the meantime, I dug this out. It's been sitting on a shelf back there for the past year while I was using the Blue Yeti. So I hadn't, looked at it or used it for the past year. So then when I finally had to put it into service, I discovered that I was getting a lot of static on the recording, and it was very, not terrific. So I tried to trace it down. I used different cables, different ports. I rebooted. I used the hub, and finally I tested it on a second machine. Luckily, we have access to one. And again, I tried it with different cables, and there was always this annoying static in the background. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out what it was. And I even resorted to using. I should have done this up before. I even resorted to using a little bit of this deoxit, which is great for electrical contacts. And I used this in here, and then I cleaned out with both a toothpick and tried to get in a little Q-tip in there. So that sort of seemed to work temporarily. And I thought maybe that was it. It was just some corrosion, and I wasn't making a terrific contact or good contact, so I was getting the static. Well, it just kept coming back. So I looked around the net, like what you're supposed to do. Oh, and yeah, I have this blue LED is like just terribly blinding when it's on. So I, like everybody, I got a little bit of electrical tape to cover that up. Anyway, so there was no solution. And one thing I noticed was that the body was it was loose. Like the top part here and the bottom part, there was just a tiny bit of play. And it finally occurred to me, well, maybe I should just tighten the screws. But before doing that, and this is a little Phillips jeweler screwdriver, and one of these little one of these little jeweler sets comes in awfully handy if you're dealing with tiny screws. So let me just take this apart, because rather than just tightening it, I thought, well, I'll just, if I'm going to do this anyway, I might as well just take it apart and see what's inside. And it was quite educational, I thought, and I thought my first thought was to try maybe share that with you. So there's really not that much to this. Looking at the build quality, this is a solid metal casing. It's quite weighty and quite impressive too. So there's that. Unfortunately, this part is very light, flimsy little piece of plastic, and extremely obnoxious. I mean, doesn't seem to be in keeping with the rest of it. And now getting into this part, there's another 4 little screws here, and I'm just going to quickly go through, take these out too. And I tend to be a little awkward, but there's probably better ways or different ways to do this. So I thought, well, let's trace this down. Maybe there's even, maybe there's something inside here that is affecting and creating that static. So I mean, I'd blown away the warranty by this time. Well, it was worn out anyway. It was gone because it was sitting on the shelf behind me. So that's now the perfect time to explore this thing. So let me see here. Oops, am I tightening this? What's going on? What have I done now? Okay, so it's this one screw. Okay. Oops. There we go. So there's the 4 screws, and they come out like that. And then inside here, oops. So I just want to keep them separate. So these are the 2 outside screws, and those are the 4 inside screws. So inside, here's the little capsule, and it's on a little rubber housing. And there's not really much to it. There's 2 wires coming out, and this tiny wire here, actually no, right here, there was a tiny piece of exposed copper wire. So I got a tiny little piece of this black electrical tape, and I cut off a piece, and then I just sort of moved it around. I don't think that really had any bearing on it, but I did that as well. And then I just basically put it back together. So I made, I think the Audio Technica portion is in the front. So let me just put that back together. I think I'll probably speed this section up and maybe gloss over that, because I tend to be quite fiddly trying to do these little things. This is a little screw holder that's part of my computer technician's kit, and you can put the head of the tiny little screws in there, and then you can just go sort of get them started. And these kits are not that expensive. They're like, there should not be any reason to get into this part. That's what I'm thinking. I just did that, and I just redid this just to sort of show you what's in there. It's quite intriguing. So that's good. And now this part slides back in there, but it's a little awkward to put over this. So, and then these 2 things are the little buttons that go here. So just replace that, and then slide the whole portion like that. There we go. That was pretty easy, actually. And then we just plop these 2 screws in. And what I believe is that it was just making sure that these 2 screws were tight. Because as soon as I plugged it back in, it was like night and day. It was, and when I first purchased this, I thought it sounded pretty not bad. You know, I mean, there wasn't anything dramatic but I mean, as far as quality goes, I thought it was quite reasonable, you know, especially versus one of these plastic little microphones that you'd get with, you know, that were just tiny little diaphragm like that. It was just terrible quality, kind of, I don't know, hollow sounding or whatever. But this is just nice and quite not bad, you know. I mean, it's not like a I mean, I wouldn't compare it to $300-400 microphone. I mean, it's about, you know, $80 or $100 or something for in the US. So, but I think, you know, the construction, it actually impressed me. So, yeah. So right now, I'm recording this on an off-camera recorder. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this back in my stand over here, and then record a tiny little bit just to see what it sounds like for you, and then that'll be that.
There we go. So yeah, so so this is what it sounds like installed. I have a couple of samples of what it sounded like with the static, but I mean, if you're watching this video and still here, you know already. I don't think you need to hear my terrible recording. There you have it. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.